Up on that theme of the implementation date, part of what was required for that was a successful consultation process. Now, you'll know through media reports that our office has obtained some documents that relate to that consultation process. And there's a couple of issues there that I would like to pick up with you. Starting with an email on the 1st of July, which talks about having 30,000 responses. This is an email which in the subject line is entitled ULEZ Consultation Weekly Summary Report. Were you aware that there were weekly summary reports going to senior members of your team?
I wasn't, but I wouldn't be surprised if there were.
At this point, so you weren't aware of these weekly reports, but you wouldn't be surprised if there were. At this point in the consultation process, 66% of Londoners were voting against the expansion of the ULEZ. We go to another email, which is on the 7th of July. This goes from Alex Williams to your Deputy Mayor, Seb Dance. There's a line here that jumped out at me. It said, pulled together a separate note for Sarah Coombs on what we plan to do in the last few remaining weeks of the consultation. Can you tell me why TfL and the Deputy Mayor were proactively monitoring the results, and why were they raising concerns about these results, with a view to having some specific actions in the last few weeks?
Chair, I've been asked about emails I wasn't involved in, I know nothing about, but you know, the key thing is this: on a number of policy areas, it could be policing, it could be housing, it could be transport. I'd expect members of my team to be speaking to relevant organisations. On this particular issue, I didn't receive any updates, nor did I ask for any, between the consultation opening or closing. I was the decision maker.
So you would be surprised that your Deputy Mayor, for example, was receiving updates on the consultation process?
I would be surprised if TfL or Met Police Service or the relevant land department in City Hall were talking to Deputy Mayors about policy areas in the area.
Okay. So we go to a briefing for the Deputy Mayor on the 13th of July. One of the action points on this agenda is to look at a midpoint review. We go to a page here which talks about proposed additional actions. One of the proposed additional actions it talks of is targeted marketing at younger age groups. Why were TfL targeting marketing at younger age groups?
Chair, I've been asked about an email I've not seen, wasn't addressed to me, so I can't really answer that.
So you don't know why TfL was targeting younger age groups?
In general terms, I always encourage us to consult with everybody. In City Hall, since I've become mayor, got a young person's peer group. We do peer outreach work in relation to young people, and so generally speaking, we like to make sure those who are underserved, what used to be called hard to reach, are no longer underserved. So it may be to do with that, I'm not sure.
Right. So if we look at other groups that were underserved from those consultation responses, women and members of the BAME community, were any of those groups targeted by specific marketing by TfL or other agencies?
I'm not sure about particular marketing.
Okay. On the 13th of October, I asked you if any external agencies have been used to drive responses. You said that you were not aware. If we look at this briefing pack from the 13th of from July, it says Wavemaker has produced a revised marketing plan and proposed further investment in our digital marketing channel and digital audio channel to improve our demographic reach. Do you know who Wavemaker are?
No.
Did your Deputy Mayor tell you about using Wavemaker, who are an external digital agency, exactly the kind of agency I asked you about on the 13th of October?
No, he didn't.
Your Deputy Mayor did not tell you that you were using an external agency. If we go to another page in that report, it talks about summary and next steps. In the summary, it says that they will review the impact of the targeted marketing of younger Londoners, and it also says they will continue to update the GLA. So do you accept that there were regular briefings between TfL and your team regarding consultation results?
When you say my team, I hope most people who work here are part of my team. As I explained to you, in any policy area, I'd expect the relevant policy department to be liaising closely, working closely with members of my team, whether it's in transport, whether it's in housing, whether it's in fire, whether it's in policing or other issues that we deal with. I am the decision maker. I'm quite clear. I wasn't involved.
So these briefings went to senior members of your team, including Seb Dance, who's the Deputy Mayor. Do you know why he told me on the 17th of November that he hadn't been briefed on any of these results? He was sitting next to you at the time, if you recall.
I mean, asked my views what somebody else was thinking, what they said.
So you're not surprised that your deputy mayor was briefed on these results, and when he sat next to you in a meeting on the 17th of November and said he hadn't been briefed on these results, you didn't feel the urge to say anything or correct or question that assertion?
It's a ridiculous question.
I don't think it is. It's a ridiculous answer. At this point, by the way, in the consultation, we see that 67% of Londoners are opposed to the ULEZ expansion. And it's starting to feel, when you read through the papers, that panic is starting to set in. And we see that on the a meeting that was called on the 20th of July. Were you aware of this meeting on the 20th of July, where members of your senior team were in attendance to receive what is called the consultation update?
I'm not sure about the date or the meeting, or whether I was aware or not, until I'd received the documents in my diary at the time to know what I was doing and stuff, so I can't answer the question.
So at this point, 66% of respondents are opposed. In this briefing pack on the 20th of July, which, like I say, sounds like it was a sort of panicked meeting, it says, there's a bullet point here in terms of the consultation overview that says, we've modified our marketing approach to attract younger people to respond to the consultation. We're using social media and updated digital advertising. I would presume that you weren't aware of this targeted marketing approach either. On page 61 of my briefing pack here, it talks about targeted marketing of younger age groups. It says, on the 11th of July 2022, we invested a further £165,000 in promoting the consultation to the under 35 age group via digital marketing, digital audio channels and social media. Were you aware of this spend of £165,000 to specifically target certain members to respond to your ULEZ consultation?
I can't answer as to date. I am aware that money was spent to promote the consultation. I can't give you specifics as to how that was broken down and stuff, but...
So were you aware of that when I asked you in October if you were aware of any money being spent on external agencies advertising?
No, I wasn't. I'm not aware of any particular agencies. I think your question is, are you aware of money being spent to market? That's what I'm saying.
So you were aware that money was spent to market. And would that be you that signs that off?
No.
It wasn't. And do you know if Wavemaker, the external marketing agency, were the group that was used to do that
I don't know.
targeted marketing? Okay. So there are very senior people at this meeting. And like I said, it feels like an emergency meeting. We've mentioned Deputy Mayor Seb Dance. Who is Shirley Rodriguez, please? Could you remind the Assembly?
That isn't a ridiculous question. She's the Deputy Mayor for Environment and Energy.
Right, so she's one of your deputy mayors. When it talks about ongoing engagement in this report, it says that Shirley met with the leaders of 12 NGO organisations, including Rosamond, LCC, Asper and Lung UK, to mobilise them. Do we know who these NGOs were?
So which NGOs?
The 12 NGOs that Shirley met with?
No.
Okay. What do you think they meant by mobilise them?
I suspect to respond to the consultation.
In a certain way, you would expect as well.
Well, I think it's your inference, not hers, and not what you've read says. But I can understand why you infer that.
Because Shirley's met with 12 NGO organisations to mobilise them. So do you know what was said at that meeting with those NGOs?
I think we've been over this. No, I don't.
I'm trying to understand what your senior team briefed you about.
Why don't you...
do you recall telling me that you did not want to influence the results or the process, so you didn't want to be seen to be predetermining the consultation?
Yeah, I'm the decision maker, so I'm quite clear that the first time I saw the final report was on the 18th of November. It was a Lever-Arch file like the one I have for MQTs, and I spent the next few days reading the Lever-Arch file. I was then given a mayoral decision, smaller than this, about 50 pages, which I would have signed on the Thursday after the Friday. And so that's the first time that I saw the final results, was on the 18th of November.
So give me the date you first saw the final results again, please, Mr. Mayor.
It was the report to the Mayor on Friday the 18th of November, and this report included, for your notes, the full analysis of the consultation responses, wider information for my consideration, including public health data and London-wide polling data, and recommendations from TfL.
Do you accept that senior members of your team meeting certain pro-ULEZ expansion groups could be seen as predetermining or influencing the result? For example, here there's a very specific bullet point where it asks Breathe London to share the consultation with their networks.
No, for two reasons. One, I am the decision maker, And two, this is not a referendum. This is a consultation.
Can you tell us who Sarah Brown is?
Sarah Brown is the, don't have full title, but I think she's the Mayoral Director of Communications, but we can check the full title if it helps.
So why was your Director of Communications attending briefing meetings about the ULEZ consultation results?
Again, you're asking me a question about a meeting that I'm not aware of, but I'm sure, if you were to write to Sarah Brown, I'm sure she could respond to your question.
So you don't know why your Director of Communications was attending a meeting about ULEZ consultation results and receiving those weekly updates?
No.
By the 28th of July, opposition from Londoners stood at 64%. We can also see in here that there are breakdowns of inner London versus outer London results. Do you recall telling me that you didn't have the analysis and that you didn't think it had been done on inner London, outer London and outside London responses?
Well, it was in my final report on the 8th of November.
So you said you didn't think that analysis had been done. Reading from the summary of this pack, it says here, we've carried out further analysis of these responses by area, inner, outer and outside of London, and more details are provided. So do you now recognise that that analysis was done, and this is dating back to July?
Well, the issue was whether the final report had the analysis in, and the final report on the 8th of November was almost 400 pages, I think 350 pages. That had a lot of information in there, including the full analysis of the consultation responses.
On the 17th of November meeting, Caroline Pidgeon, my colleague Caroline Pidgeon, asked you your plans for a scrappage scheme. You said, and I'm quoting here from the transcript, I simply don't know, I've not seen the report in relation to that. From a briefing in July, on the 28th of July, a bullet point from here, from the Action 2, which says ULEZ 6 months on report. We've evaluated the first scrappage schemes and have a report we are preparing to release alongside the announcement of a new scrappage fund. However, we could release it earlier if desired, as it shows the Mayor has helped SMEs and low-income Londoners. This is a report from July which clearly talks about a scrappage scheme, and the implementation here is that a scrappage scheme has been approved because it can be released earlier, as it's suggested from this bullet point. So why did you tell Caroline Pidgeon you didn't know about a scrappage scheme?
Well, there couldn't have been a scrappage scheme before I signed it off in the mayoral direction on the 24th of November. What's well rehearsed in the public was me lobbying the government for a scrappage scheme. I'm still lobbying the government for a scrappage scheme. One of the negotiations with the government, one of the things we were lobbying for, is to give London the same sort of support they're given to Birmingham, Bristol and other cities with their clean air zone. So it's not a surprise to me that we're talking about a scrappage scheme, because we had a scrappage scheme in the central London congestion zone ULEZ
yeah,
area.
so I mean, but to be clear, I'm reading from the report. The report here, these aren't my words. This report that goes to your senior members of staff talks about the announcement, alongside the announcement of the new scrappage fund. That's what it says here. And wouldn't you agree that suggesting that a scheme is in place and ready to be announced earlier if desired, which it says what it says here in the paperwork, that can provide further evidence, and people might think that you had predetermined the ULEZ expansion before the consultation was finished, which is why there was a scrappage scheme ready to go, and it was just waiting on timing to brief about that scheme. An email from Alex Williams. An email from Alex Williams on the 18th of July says, and a lot of these, they're heavily redacted, so I'm picking what I can from these reports. An email on the 18th of July to your Deputy Mayor Seb Dance under the title Consultation Update says the number of responses received for the consultation is 35,161 as of the 14th of July. A snapshot of responses received so far and stakeholder activity is provided. Note, we are also seeing Sarah Brown, who's your Director of Communications, this week, and we will update her on the additional work we discussed at our last one-to-one with the Commissioner. So here we see again evidence that your Director of Communication is being regularly briefed on the TfL consultation on ULEZ as it's going along. And you're telling me that at no point did your Director of Communications brief you? No. There was no communication with your Deputy Mayor, with your Director of Communications, who was receiving essentially weekly updates.
I think it's important that I'm clear. The first time I saw the final report was on the 18th of November. I couldn't be clearer.
So further concern was raised when I saw an email from the 22nd of July. Again, this is going to members of your team. It says here that we now have 39,000 responses. The campaigns appear to be having a positive impact, and there is a slight swing in percentages supporting the scheme. This is again another email with the title ULEZ Consultation Weekly Summary Report. And this went to, we've got the list here, we've got Shirley Rodriguez, who's one of your deputy mayors, Seb Dance, who's one of your deputy mayors, David Bellamy, who's your chief of staff, Richard Watts, who's your deputy chief of staff, and as I said, Sarah Brown, who's your director of communications. It talks about the 39,000 responses. What do you think was meant when they said it was having a positive impact?
I'm not sure. I wasn't privy to that email.
Well, what do you suspect they meant when they said that it was having a positive impact?
Well, I suggest you write to them and ask them.
So you want me to write to your deputy mayor, Shirley Rodriguez, your other deputy mayor, Seb Dance, your chief of staff, David Bellamy, your deputy chief of staff, Richard Watts, and your director of communications to ask them what they meant?
That would be the way to get a clear answer, rather than this smokescreen to take away from the substance, which is your opposition to the expansion of ULEZ and our attempts to clean the air in London. And that's all this is, a smokescreen.
So at no point did they brief you on these weekly reports that they were having. At this point, the opposition to this scheme stands at 64%. And a briefing on the 2nd of August first talks about fair fuel. And it states that there are 4,387 opposition emails that have come in from that organisation. It also talks about 3,007 emails from Possible, who were a group that were named earlier. Were you aware of Possible, and were they working with your office or with an extension of your office?
No, I wasn't aware of Possible.
So they weren't working with your office or any consultants that were working with your office, individuals like Ollie Lord, people like that?
I wasn't aware.
An email on the 5th of August, which is again another weekly consultation summary report. These are weekly reports updating your senior staff on the process of the consultation. And this is from Christina Calderoto. I hope I pronounced that correctly. It says that 5,267 emails, including those from Fairfuel, were not going to be counted. Did you know about that?
No, but I've since the publicity you sought to generate, asked for an explanation, which I can give you if you want it.
So did you know about those responses being removed at that point? This is an email on the 5th of August.
No, I didn't. I wasn't aware about this. I don't accept the way you've described that, so that's why I was trying to explain it. But if you don't want to, that's fine.
So it's not the way I've explained it. The email says this number does not include the 5,267 campaign emails.
Do you want me to explain
That's what it
this?
says here.
You said no, and so I'm saying to you, if you don't want me to explain it, that's fine, but I can't explain this, but I wasn't aware of this.
Of October, I asked you if all campaign groups were being treated the same. You said you were waiting to see what TfL said. Considering that email in August that went to those senior people, your Deputy Mayor Shirley Rodriguez, your Deputy Mayor Seb Dance, your Chief of Staff David Bellamy, your Deputy Chief of Staff Richard Watts, and your Director of Communication Sarah Brown, you are asking us to accept that you had no knowledge of those results being removed.
So we've just agreed you don't want me to explain the explanation I've been given, but I'll just repeat in that case that the results of the consultation were presented to me in a report to the Mayor on the 8th of November this last year.
The 8th of November, as you've said.
18th.
18th. When we go further into that report, we have a look at some other email responses that were sent in. From the London Cycling Campaign, we see there's 1,577 emails. They were supporting your ULEZ extension, and those emails were included in the final results. We see Possible. They sent in 4,324 emails that were supportive of your ULEZ expansion, and they were included in the final results. From Action Network, we see another 701 responses, and they're supportive of your ULEZ expansion, and they are included in the final results. With Fair Fuel, we see 4,725 responses not supporting your ULEZ expansion, and they are not included in the final result. Do you think that's fair?
Well, if the questioner gives me time, I can explain this, but I'm in his hands. He seems to be just reading a list of questions without waiting for the answer. I'm not sure what you want me to do.
So you don't think it's fair?
I think you should answer the question that's been asked of you, Mr. Mayor.
Well, the explanation I've been given from TfL is all organised responses were received by email and were shared with AECOM for analysis as part of the consultation. The types of organised responses received fell into one of three categories. A statement of support, which was the same text for all of the organised responses received. There were 554 email responses from supporters of Live in Streets, which fell into that category. A statement of opposition, which was the same text for all of the organised responses received. The 4,726 email responses from supporters of Fair Fuel UK fell into that same category. A statement of support and answers to a selection of consultation survey questions in the close part of the consultation. And the following responses fell into this category, which were 1,581 emails from supporters of the London Cycling Campaign, 705 emails from supporters of the Friends of the Earth Network, and 4,312 emails from supporters of wearepossible.org. Fair Fuel Campaign was represented in the final report to me on which I based my decision.
So the Fair Fuel responses were removed from the final results. The groups whose responses were accepted, do you know if they were part of the 12 NGO groups that your Director of Communications met with and was discussed on that emergency meeting in July?
I'm not Chair, but as I've explained on a number of occasions, the Fair Fuel Campaign was represented in the final report to me on which I based my decision.
And that final report you saw on the 18th of November. Do you recall telling me on the 13th of October that you had not been briefed on any of the results at all?
The final results I received on the 18th of November.
I was very, if you recall, I asked the question a number of times in a number of different ways. So I also talked about ongoing results, results during the process, after the process. I came at it every which way I can. Do you remember how many times I asked you if you've been briefed on those results?
I think it began by, the question was, did I receive any updates between the consultation opening and the consultation closing? And I didn't receive any updates in between those dates. There was a working summary of the progress on the consultation presented to me in a meeting I had with the Commissioner. We discussed many other things during that meeting, TfL funding, industrial relations, TfL board. But what's quite clear, I've asked my office to check, is that document on the slide states, this document reflects ongoing work and discussions within TfL and is not intended to reflect or represent any formal TfL or GLA views or policy. So there was a working summary of the responses, which was not the final results which I received on the 18th of November.
So you weren't briefed on the ongoing results of the consultation, but you had, what did you call it, a working summary of what those results were?
It's a working summary of the progress.
Of the results?
No, they are the working summary of the progress on the consultation responses.
An email to the Deputy Mayor, Seb Dance, on the 2nd of September provides an update on the ULEZ consultation and says that a ULEZ consultation update will go to the Mayor on the 20th of September. That's the 20th of September. Do you recall telling me on the 17th of November that you'd not been briefed on the results?
The first time I saw the final results was on the 18th of November in the report that was presented to me, which I explained was a lever arch file.
On the 17th of November, do you recall the Deputy Mayor telling me that he had not been briefed on the results?
Well, I only got the results the day after that, so it would be the next day I got the results. So he may not have seen the results.
He said categorically a number of times that he had not been briefed on the results.
Well,
so
it doesn't surprise me because the results were presented to me the next day on the 18th of November.
So I have a pack here from the 6th of September. It's called the London-wide ULEZ Road User Charging Consultation Results, briefing for the Deputy Mayor for Transport on the 6th of September, which I think we'll agree is before the November date. In that briefing that went to the Deputy Mayor on the 6th of September, we see a connection between the ULEZ expansion and the MTS revision, despite later assertions that the two were not linked. We also see a timetable which sets out when your official decision is due to be taken. And this timetable says that your official decision will be taken on the 24th of November, which it was. And this is from a briefing in September. So is that just a coincidence?
Chair, the member's asking me, the decision maker, questions about what the Deputy Mayor knew or didn't know. I simply don't know the answers.
So in this timetable, at the back of your Deputy Mayor's briefing, where it says a decision will be taken on the 24th of November, a week after the London Assembly meets to discuss the MTS, is it simply a coincidence that this timetabled date, which was set out in late August, early September, is exactly the date that you took the decision. Is that just a coincidence, or were you aware of that 24th of November decision date?
I'm not surprised at all. There is a timeline for these decisions to be made. There should be. I'd be disappointed and annoyed if City Hall TfL weren't working on a timeline of when the consultation is, when it goes to the consultants to analyse, when it comes to me, and consequences on what decisions I take. Of course you've got to work on timelines. It'd be ridiculous.
So when you
Not to have
came to the
timelines.
Assembly to discuss the MTS, the changes to the MTS on the 17th of November, were you aware that a date had been set that next week for a decision,
No.
despite the fact that it was in the timetable?
I think the
at back of
language I
Deputy
may
Mayor's?
have used was, we're going to make a decision shortly. And I think I gave a commitment to try and do it this side of Christmas, which I did.
An email to Seb Dance on the 13th of December under consultation update says, today's presentation provides a summary of the key findings from the consultation and the next steps. A further email dated on the 14th of September shares ULEZ consultation slides for the Mayor. So these are the final results deck for the Mayor. And these were seen by, again, your Deputy Mayor Shirley Rodriguez, your Deputy Mayor Seb Dance, your Chief of Staff David Bellamy, your Deputy Chief of Staff Richard Watts, and your Director of Communications Sarah Brown. This was done in preparation for your briefing, Mr. Mayor, which you had on the 29th of September. Do you recall that 29th of September briefing?
No, but as I said, I understand from checking there was a working summary of the progress that had been made in the consultation responses. And it was one of a number of items that was discussed on that day, including TfL funding, industrial relations, the TfL board, and any other business.
So the London 1 ULEZ and road user charging consultation results, briefing for the Mayor, which is the 29th of September, not the 8th of November. You might want to review that. And in that briefing, you saw the results of the consultation. You were briefed on the inner and outer London responses. You learnt of the deleted 5,000 responses from Londoners. On the last page of the briefing, we see a clear connection between the MTS and the London-wide ULEZ decision. In fact, in an email which notes down some of the conversation you had, it says the responses to the consultation, including from London boroughs, the results for representative polling and the proposed mitigations were seen by the Mayor. He was content with the approach for the proposed mitigations. So you were briefed on the results, you were briefed on actions that were going to happen after the decision, which was timetabled, was taken. It was also noted that the changes to the Mayor's transport strategy had to be laid before the London Assembly, which is an assertion we made on the day that it came up. All of these things that are in this briefing that you received on the 29th of September, you denied when I asked you about them in October, just a few weeks later. So, Mr. Mayor, my question is, why did you not tell the Assembly the truth?
The questions you asked are quite clear. The questions you asked were in relation to my involvement during the consultation period, and I was quite clear then, and I'm quite clear now that I wasn't involved in any updates during the consultation period, opening or closing. What you're talking about is a working summary of the progress that's been made in the consultation response, and my understanding is that's a snapshot of the work in progress, but also my understanding is the documents that you're talking about quite clearly state on every single page, and I quote, "This document reflects ongoing work and discussions within TfL and is not intended to reflect or represent any formal TfL or GA views of policy." It definitely isn't, as you've asserted, the results. The results were presented to me in a report on the 8th of November, and that report included the final full analysis of the consultation responses. Those are the results, not as you're asserting a working summary on the 29th of September.
Isn't it quite clear from these documents that have been released that senior members of your team were taking weekly updates on the results as they came in from the consultation? Isn't it clear from what we've read in these documents that when the consultation was going in a direction that was negative to your predetermined route to expand ULEZ, money was spent, considerable money was spent, using external agencies to target groups that you thought would get more positive responses? Is it not the case that when responses came in from Londoners that did not take the consultation in the direction that you wanted, a reason was found to remove those results? Isn't it clear that you, the Deputy Mayor, your Chief of Staff, your Deputy Chief of Staff and your Director of Communications, who were involved in this all the way through, kept a very close eye on this consultation and tried to move it to a place where you wanted it, to expand the ULEZ zone, because that's been the intention, and the consultation was just a sham and there was never any intention to listen to Londoners.
Well, this 15-minute period of 20-minute period of questions with very little chance of answers is the best example of the smokescreen, because the Conservatives, Chair, are embarrassed about their opposition to policies to clean up the air in our city. They've been opposed since the beginning of the ULEZ, and they're opposed now. I'm quite clear. I, as the decision maker, decided to have a consultation, not a referendum. I, as the decision maker, read the final report for the first time on Friday the 18th of November. That had everything in it that was needed for me, the decision maker, to make a decision, including the full analysis of the consultation responses, wide information for my consideration, public health data, London-wide polling data and recommendations. And what you've seen over the last 30 minutes is hot air from the Conservatives, embarrassed at their position, and I'm afraid it's another example why they're not fit to hold office.
Mr. Mayor, you can't wish away the fact that you were briefed on the results throughout the consultation. You can't wish away the fact that certain responses were deleted because they didn't conform to the direction you wanted it to go. You can't wish away that the decision date was set in stone months before it was taken, despite you denying it. You can't wish away the fact that when you were asked direct questions, you did not answer them with complete factual exactitude. Mr. Mayor, the right thing to do here, because you've been caught, is to stop this expansion, is to look again at the consultation, is to listen properly to Londoners and respond to what they're telling you.